Despite arguably being the most iconic avatars in gaming history, Miis aren't the kind of thing most people would expect to have any sort of dedicated fandom. With a few exceptions, Miis tend to fade into the background of most games they're in. It's much easier to grow attached to an established character like Mario than something that's essentially a blank slate. But just because becoming attached to these characters is less common doesn't mean it never happens. Miis do have a fandom, and always have to some extent. It's just a very niche one, and its history has gone almost completely undocumented, which is why I'm making this video. But in order to understand how we even got where we are now, we have to go back to the beginning. By this point, many of you are probably familiar with the general timeline of the Mii's rise and fall from mainstream popularity. It's a subject that's been covered many times on YouTube already. The concept dates all the way back to the Famicom Disk System, but Miis were first fully realized on the Nintendo Wii in 2006, where they featured prominently in some of the console's most iconic games, like Wii Sports. In 2009, Nintendo released Tomodachi Collection for the DS, but it wouldn't be until 2014 that the series would see a release outside of Japan with the second game in the series, Tomodachi Life. Following this, Nintendo began experimenting with other games based on Tomodachi Life, bringing us Miitomo and Miitopia. Throughout this video, I'm just going to use the umbrella term Mii series for the Tomodachi series and its spin-offs. Following the release of the Nintendo Switch, Miis faded from prominence other than the occasional port, all the way until the announcement of Tomodachi Life Living the Dream in early 2025, which marks the first Mii series game to release since Miitopia in 2016, or mid-2017 for those outside of Japan. Before I dive into the fandom, I'd like to lay out a couple prerequisites. First of all, the Mii fandom is currently in its biggest state of transition possibly ever due to the launch of Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, and while I will touch on modern affairs a bit, it's going to become outdated quite quickly, so just consider this video to be more of a look back or time capsule. While I try to paint a wide view of the community, this video will naturally lean more towards the English-speaking side since it's difficult for me to research languages I'm not fluent in, so just keep that in mind. Throughout this video, I will be using quotes and data from the community. These are all answers and results from a survey I conducted about the Mii community as a part of the research for this video. If you're interested in looking into all the data, even things I didn't mention here, the full survey results are linked in the description. But with that laid out, let's begin.
Make sure to like and subscribe, or you will be shot to death.
Beginnings. Mii sharing on the net. The Mii character's potential as a canvas for creativity was recognized by netizens pretty much as soon as the Wii came out. People began to look for ways to share their Mii creations online. Many users posting their Miis to forums and blogs, often recreations of popular celebrities or characters at the time. In 2006, a website called famousme.com was created. It was launched probably about a month after the Wii was released, although it's hard to say exactly since archives don't go all the way back to the creation of the site, but this site is very likely the oldest dedicated Mii fan site ever. As stated by the admin,
famousme.com is a Nintendo Wii and Mii enthusiast website. After buying a Nintendo Wii, I became fascinated with these cool little Miis, so I began searching the internet for celebrity and famous Miis. Unfortunately, there was no site dedicated to this, and I only found a few here and there on some forums. I wanted to dedicate a website solely to these Miis.
On famousme.com, each Mii would have a name, picture, and a step-by-step guide on how to recreate it on your own Wii, since QR codes weren't a thing at the time. There was a seemingly high demand for Mii sharing sites like this, so it quickly gained traction, and even began to take user submissions. This website would be the first of many to index and share Miis in this way. The site became so popular it was even featured on the December 27, 2006 episode of the American talk show Attack of the Show. I tried to find this episode, but of course, despite most of the other episodes being archived, this particular one is completely lost, or at least I wasn't able to find it. There were many other sites that would follow in famousme.com's footsteps, although it's hard to say exactly how many since it's possible some sites haven't been archived, but I have at least a couple other examples, mainly miiplaza.net and miicharacters.com. Unlike famousme.com and mecharacters.com, meplaza.net had no manual review system for posts before they would go up, so this site had a little more trolling and weird content than the other two, although the genuine user base of the site seemed pretty normal. While famousme.com just hosted guides on how to recreate Miis, other sites would take a different approach. On meplaza.net, users could either share Miis by adding other users as friends on the Wii and transferring them directly, or with a hacked Wii by using a Mii binary file. Neither of these methods were particularly efficient, so in 2007, a tool was developed by fans called Mii Megamall, which allowed you to transfer Miis from your computer onto your Wii remote using Bluetooth, which you could then transfer onto your Wii or vice versa. There was also a version of this tool for Mac called Mii Transfer. In 2009, meplaza.net was renamed to gamercreated.com, signaturing the end of its life as an exclusively Mii-focused website. The site was last archived in 2017 and, as of now, no longer exists. Also, during my research, I kept finding these old websites that offered unofficial custom Mii t-shirts. It's not really much of a fandom thing per se, but it's funny that it even existed. It leaves me wondering, did anyone ever actually buy these? And if so, are there any still out there, just like rotting away in some basement or attic? While nearly all dedicated Mii sharing websites were gone by the early 2010s, including famousme.com, the last Mii sharing site I'm discussing in this video still stands to this day. That site is mecharacters.com. This is a site that you've surely seen if you've ever gone hunting for Mii QR codes on the internet. In terms of the site itself, it was created in 2007 and functions pretty much exactly the same as meplaza.net, except eventually getting QR code functionality. The site still existing is really the main notable thing about it. While mecharacters.com is still functional, the site itself is completely dormant. No new user submissions have been approved since 2017. I sent them an email on the off chance any admins still checked on the site, but I haven't heard back. When I initially wrote this part of the script a couple months ago, the website ranked quite high in search results, which is why I mentioned you've likely seen it before. But when looking it up recently, it's been completely blacklisted from Google. It still shows up on other search engines, but realistically, most traffic is going to be coming from Google, so if it wasn't already, this really marks the death of the website. The Mii sharing fad of the early Wii era also spawned other trends like the plethora of Mii making tutorials on YouTube, videos that would show you how to recreate certain Miis on your own Wii, many of which you could still find today since, unlike most other sites from the time, YouTube still exists. If you've been on the internet at any point over the past decade or so, you've likely seen one of these tutorials, like the classic video, How to Make a Hamburger Mii, uploaded in 2009, which currently stands at over 9 million views.
I discovered Mii's online all the way back to the Wii days. That one Mii QR code website. YouTube videos of how to make the hamburger Mii. Pre-beef boss.
Mii making on the net. Another site vital to early Mii fans that you would see mentioned in a lot of old forum posts or linked on other sites was MiiEditor.com, or as it later became, MyAvatarEditor.com. As the URL sorta implies, this was a fan-made Mii editor. This browser-based Flash game allowed you to make Miis, load and save Mii binary files, which you could put on your Wii with Mii Megamall, and even save your Mii as a JPEG. If you're familiar with the current-day Mii fandom, think of this site like the earliest predecessor to Mii Creator. You might be surprised to see how far back fan-made Mii creators actually go. But of course, all good things must come to an end. The original site, MiiEditor.com, was taken down by Nintendo in 2008.
Dear friends, I deeply regret to have to inform you that due to legal action taken against this website from the Big N, the editor service provided here will no longer be available. While still in ownership of this domain, I would like to personally thank each and every one of you who has supported this project and has provided me with positive criticism and feedback regarding the editor and the site. To my surprise, I have received many heartwarming stories concerning the use of the editor and the impact it has had on different people's lives. It pleases me to no end to have heard those stories and would like to encourage everyone to continue to share their stories with other developers and site owners so that they too can feel the same appreciation that I have. Though I do not welcome what is being done, I do understand the reasons. And while I don't necessarily fully agree with those reasons, especially in the context of this website, there isn't much I can do about it. I have had as much fun working on the editor as people have had using it, and I am thankful at the time it was able to remain online. Sincerely, Trevor, meeditor.com.
In early 2009, MeEditor came back under a new domain, myavatareditor.com. This version functioned exactly the same, but looked a bit less like the official Me Maker. Unfortunately, in 2011, myavatareditor.com was, again, struck down by Nintendo, for good this time. It still kinda works on the Wayback Machine, but if you want to play it now, it's better to just play the game on another site, since it's still being rehosted all over the web using Ruffle. The late 2000s and early 2010s was also the earliest period I was able to find Me-related wiki sites popping up. In 2009, both the Wii Sports Wiki and the Japanese Tomodachi Collection Wiki were created. But for the most part, the Me fandom during this time just felt like an extension of the Wii fandom, or just the World Wide Web equivalent of the Check Me Out channel / Me Contest channel. The core of it was really just making and sharing Miis, and it didn't really go much deeper than that. The Me community has seen a slow but massive shift in attitude over the years, to the point where it's almost completely unrecognizable from what it once was. What I mean is, while Miis did have a community in the early 2000s and 2010s, the way people viewed Me characters was very different from how most fans see them today. This is a really difficult thing to articulate, but the community just didn't have many typically fandom-like attributes. At the time, Miis were little more than just a gimmick of the Wii, more of a fun novelty than something you would have any serious devotion towards. You didn't really see that intense passion that comes with most fandoms, the stuff that drives people to write fanfiction, draw fan art, and relentlessly argue with each other. It wasn't until years later that the slow shift to a more dedicated fandom would begin to occur. The release of Tomodachi Collection in 2009 was the first domino in the long chain leading to the eventual fandomification of the Me community. The game sold over 3.7 million copies, and despite only releasing in Japan, it is the 24th most popular game of the entire original DS library, even beating out games like Rhythm Heaven, which were sold worldwide. Like I said, the Me fandom has always been a very slow-moving and niche community. Me games being popular but seeing absolutely no fandom culture developing until years down the line is a pattern you'll see a lot, and this seems to be the case with Tomodachi Collection. The game received an English fan translation in 2013, however, as with most things, it didn't gain traction until later. In 2014, the Tomodachi series finally broke out of Japan for the first time with the localization of the second game in the series, known in English as Tomodachi Life. And the internet loved this game. As soon as the game came out, people began posting their screenshots and playthroughs online. It lent itself perfectly to YouTube videos, streams, and blogs due to having a lot of clippable moments. Every playthrough was completely unique, so even if multiple creators were playing the same game, each had their own cast of Me characters with their own relationships and dramas, which made it entertaining to a very wide audience. Playthroughs from popular YouTubers like Vinesauce and DanTDM absolutely blew up, and the game's online presence never totally faded. To this day, there are still many active Tomodachi Life creators. A notable example is Poofisher, whose Tomodachi Life and Wii series videos began to gain traction in 2019, and continue to perform well, with the channel still uploading frequently. But it wasn't only playthroughs that got popular. There was also lots of one-off skits and clips that gained traction on sites like YouTube, amassing hundreds of thousands and sometimes even millions of views. My favorite videos from this time period have to be the Tomodachi Life in real life videos. The game very much thrived off of being shareable, especially as it allowed you to take screenshots at any point during gameplay and easily save them elsewhere. During my research, I found a lot of blogs focused on the game, not only in English but many other languages as well. People would document their islanders, their interactions, relationships, and generally just life on the island. While most of these early blogs were active for only a couple years during the peak of Tomodachi life and only really posted about the game, it wasn't always the case. A few of the blogs that started during this period are actually still actively posting about Tomodachi life and Mii's to this day. In one of my survey questions, I asked participants what their first ever Mii series game was, and out of the approximately 1,700 participants, about 70% listed Tomodachi life as the first Mii series game they had ever played. So it's safe to say this was many people's first introduction to the idea of Mii-centric games. After Tomodachi life is kind of the part where covering every aspect of the community gets harder, as over the next few years, we'd see the release of pretty much all of the Mii series games we know and love today. Each one of these games sort of split off into its own community, and although they're all connected, it's a lot harder to keep track of them than it was back when it was pretty much just the Wii or just Tomodachi life. In 2016, Nintendo took their first dive into smartphone gaming with the mobile app Miitomo, considered to be a spin-off of Tomodachi life. It was sort of a mix between a social media app and a video game, where you could make and share Miis and interact with other users. The community was quite lighthearted and known for a lot of trolling and silly memes, similar to Miiverse. At some point during Miitomo's prime in 2016, a Mii known simply as Alice started being reposted repeatedly on Style and Sidekick Central, areas of the game meant for sharing Mii outfits and Sidekick Miis respectively. This was the beginning of probably the biggest and most well-remembered meme on the platform. I have no idea exactly how or why it started, and I'm not sure if anyone does, but after this meme began to flood the platform, a war of sorts began between the people reposting Alice and the users who were sick of seeing her all over the app, and many shitposts ensued. This meme would pretty much go on until the closure of the service in 2018, and is kinda a good example of the humor and culture during this time. Miis in the 2010s were very much associated with memes. This was the era of Matt from Wii Sports and platforms like Miitomo and Miiverse functioning as shitpost breeding grounds. As such, most people weren't likely to take being a fan of such a thing seriously, and while these things were popular, a genuine dedication to Mii characters was still almost unheard of. However, at this point, the basic groundwork had been laid out. Now that we're moving towards the era where the Mii community first starts to resemble a fandom, I need to define a few categories of Mii character that fans tend to cluster around. First is CPU Miis. These are official non-player characters from various Mii games. The most popular examples you'll see are the CPUs from the Wii series and Miitopia. Examples would be Matt from Wii Sports or the Great Sage from Miitopia. In a similar vein, there's also official promotional Miis, characters that don't necessarily appear in the games, but are used in marketing material, like Hugh Morris and Bubbles from the Tomodachi Life Living the Dream directs. Next is default or guest Miis. These are pretty much any official Mii character that closely resembles the default Mii, often used as placeholders in games, such as guest A through F, default player options first used on the Wii, or the default Mii fighters from Super Smash Bros. Lastly are fan/community made Miis, or Miis that come from an external source material. These would be people's own Mii personas, fan characters, original characters, celebrity Miis, etc. Unlike the previous categories, you don't necessarily have to be a Mii fan to enjoy these. Their appeal usually comes from the character or person themselves and doesn't have much to do with whether or not they're depicted as a Mii. This gives them a much wider audience beyond the dedicated Mii community. This is basically just using Miis as Nintendo originally intended. Somewhere between 2016 and 2019 is when I believe the very first modern Mii fans as we know them today began to emerge. Although it was still very uncommon, and it wouldn't be until around 2021 that it began to catch on. Two users I think best represent the beginning of this shift are Atomic Lugia and Hey I'm Heroic / Alice. Atomic Lugia first started posting Mii content on his DeviantArt in 2016. His first Mii-related post was a showcase of this Mii he created named Jessica. In the description of the post, he explains the backstory and personality he made for her, why he loves her, and the origin of how he created her. Notably, she isn't based on any pre-existing person or character, and it's clear from the way that Atomic Lugia talks about this Mii that he is very fond of her. This is very similar to how people make Mii OCs or become attached to Mii characters today, but it wasn't something you saw often at the time. He would go on to consistently post images of Jessica, his own Mii, his other Mii OCs, and official Miis in various games, as well as renders made in Blender and Gary's mod over the next 10 years. This is the earliest documented case I could find of someone with a clear, specific, and dedicated passion for Miis. Not just because of the characters they could be used to recreate, or the games they appeared in, but simply for what they are. Not only making Mii OCs, but also clearly being a fan of pre-existing Mii characters as well. That ethos is perhaps best reflected by the fact that one of his biggest contributions to the Mii community was literally extracting Miis out of the games they come from and sharing them online. Atomic Lugia was, as far as I can tell, the first person to successfully rip and dump the 3D models for the Miis online, uploading them to DeviantArt in 2018. He is also known for being the creator of the fan game Woohoo Island Explorer, an open-world game in which you can play as a guest or default Mii and explore Woohoo Island. Hey I'm Heroic, or Alice, is another influential figure. Although not being around quite as long as Atomic Lugia, she is a well-known data miner and the creator of the website Mii Library, a site which uses extracted Mii data from games to accurately reconstruct and archive official Miis. Probably the only website to ever do this with 100% accuracy. She also used to run an account known as WeFacts Plus, which shared many now thanks to her well-known and popular facts about Miis. Like how the game TV Show King 2 gave the guest Miis names, or how a leaked 3DS debugging tool from Nintendo contained a Mii named Dummy Girl. She was the only prominent person to publicize a lot of the information found about Miis during the Nintendo Giga Leaks. While Alice and Atomic Lugia weren't the only serious Mii fans to emerge before 2021, there weren't many others, and they, by far, had the biggest lasting impact on the community. Fan art is one of the fundamental pillars of almost any online fandom, so of course I wanted to look into the history of this practice among Mii fans. The oldest examples of Mii fan art I could find dated back to around 2008 on Pixiv, but they were mostly just one-off drawings from otherwise unrelated artists. Although I did find at least one example of a person who had a Mii OC of sorts that they seemed to consistently use, as well as this series of Mii drawings posted on YouTube. This might be the oldest example of guest Mii fan art ever archived. But generally speaking, I don't think there was any significant fan art creation during this early period. Popular websites for art sharing like DeviantArt, Tumblr, and Twitter all prove rather difficult to search for older content on, and as hard as I dug, I found very little work that could be dated before 2015. But this does kinda make sense, since the timing more or less lines up with the worldwide release of Tomodachi Light. A chunk of the fan creations I saw from this year also featured another game important to the Mii fandom, Super Smash Bros. Specifically at this time, Super Smash Bros. 4, which was the first Smash game to include Miis as playable fighters. While the Mii fighters from Smash 4 were pretty underwhelming in terms of actual in-game usage, some people were drawn to them aesthetically. I mean, still not that many, but some. We would see a small but notable spike in Mii Fighter fans starting with the 2021 Mii boom, but during this early period, most people creating fan works of the Mii Fighters fell more into the category of Smash fan than they did Mii fan. During my research, I found a couple old Mii Fighter Ask blogs. This was by no means a trend, but it's funny that there was more than one, and this is just a time capsule of the era. One of the Mii characters' biggest strengths is that they're essentially blank canvases. Even the pre-existing Mii characters don't have much backstory or personalities other than what you can gather from their looks, so they leave a lot of room to project your ideas onto. This makes them a perfect vessel for things like headcanons. Who's to say Mii Gunner isn't my beautiful, intelligent wife? I think this is a big appeal Mii characters have for artists and creatives. Creepypastas were pretty popular in the 2010s. There have been many creepypastas written about Miis and Mii games over the years, like Dying Happy in 2014, a pasta about an evil Mii in Tomodachi life making people kill themselves. But by far, the most popular one that still holds quite a bit of relevancy in the community today is a pasta known as We Deleted You. Originally written by YouTube creator Nuclear Blue, formerly known as Icy Pie in 2017. The story follows a kid named Kyle, who gets a Wii for his 7th birthday. When he opens the Mii channel for the first time, he finds there's already this creepy looking Mii on it named EarthBound. He deletes this Mii twice, but it keeps reappearing. On his 3rd attempt, EarthBound speaks, warning Kyle not to delete him, and then disables the Mii channel so Kyle can't make any new Miis. A couple weeks later, Kyle has a friend over who wants to play the Wii, but when they turn it on, EarthBound shows up and starts saying creepy shit and then kills Kyle's Mii with an axe. This scares the shit out of Kyle and his friend, so they unplug the Wii and his friend goes home. This is only a summary of the first 2 parts of the story, but it's quite long and convoluted, so I don't have time to explain the whole thing. It's all on YouTube though, so if you need more background noise after you finish this video, there you go. The creepypasta blew up on YouTube where it was first uploaded, and just about a year after the original pasta was made, another creator known as the Masked Chris began creating his own narration of the story, accompanied by animatic/storyboard visuals.
Of course EarthBound wouldn't hear me, but to my surprise, he did.
Are you kidding me?
While these initial uploads did appear to get some traction, the animatic didn't totally blow up until the upload of the full series as one video in 2020, which gained over 6 million views. Because the Masked Chris's uploads were pretty much just the original story but enhanced with visuals and voice acting, it sort of became the definitive or most popular version of the story. So the character designs and stylistic choices Chris made for the animatic became synonymous with the pasta, most fan art and related media using these designs. There's a lot of things I wish I could discuss here, like the Friday Night Funkin' mod,
You're challenging me to a rap battle?
We Deleted You retake, or all the crazy other fan creations this pasta has spawned. But honestly, the We Deleted You community is its own rabbit hole. There's enough material that I could make an entire video about just this pasta. So I guess if you're interested, let me know. Despite the We Deleted You fandom kinda being its own separate thing, it does still have its connections to the wider Mii community.
I've been a Mii fan for a while before I realized there might be a proper fanbase out there. A bit before the Miitopia remake had been announced, I'd found the animatic series for We Deleted You and really enjoyed it. The problem though was that while fixated on it, I was quite limited in videos to watch beyond a few animations. So I decided that anything Mii related was close enough. It really rekindled my love for them seeing all these videos, and I even found your channel through this. It made me realize how many people out there also love these funny little characters.
Although it seemingly hit its prime around 2020 to 2021, the We Deleted You community is still going strong. And now we're finally at the modern era. This is the period where things really began to take off. The main reason for this massive resurgence beginning in 2021 was likely a combination of the release of Miitopia for the Nintendo Switch, as well as a general rise in nostalgia for 2000s and 2010s aesthetics. When Miitopia released for the Nintendo Switch, it generated way more hype and attention than the original game ever had. I think a big factor to this was the new makeup system, as well as the timing just being better. This new tool added a sort of novelty to the game, almost reminiscent of the original Mii boom on the Wii. This popularity also led to a lot of new and returning fans to the online Mii community.
I discovered the Mii fandom around 2021, shortly after the announcement of the Switch edition of Miitopia. During the pandemic, I had picked up Miitopia again and got myself obsessed with the game, so naturally, once the hype for it came back, I stumbled upon the Mii fandom while looking for new content. Due to being isolated from others during the pandemic, I began sharing more with people online.
2021 was also the year the Mii Wiki was founded, an entire wiki site dedicated to Mii characters. Before this, we did have wikis for Mii-related games, but this is the first time one was ever made for the Mii characters themselves. And of course, if we want to talk about anything related to the modern Mii fandom, we have to talk about Mii Creator. Mii Creator is a fan project that absolutely blew up over the past year or so, being a fan-made website which you can use to create Miis and render them. Basically the exact same concept as Mii Editor from all the way back in the day, but with a fresh, modern coat of paint and in full 3D. I honestly don't have a lot to say about Mii Creator or the other related sites like Arian's Mii Renderer. They're just really impressive tools which stand as a testament to the dedication of the Mii community. Unfortunately, it seems the journey of Mii Creator has not been a perfectly smooth one. The Mii Creator team has faced drama and harassment from fans, and Austin, the project's developer, has clearly been overworked throughout much of this project. Speaking of harassment and drama, this kind of segues into my next section. I wanted this video to be mostly positive, however I think it would be rather biased to deliberately exclude all negative topics. So this next section will be going over a couple of the most public and well-documented fandom incidents, as I'll call them. The Miitopia Discord is not a huge server for the platform standards, but for the Mii fandom, it's one of the bigger communities. In August of 2023, an incident occurred in which the server was taken over by malicious users. It started when the server owner's account was somehow stolen, though it has not been documented how this occurred. These users started deleting text channels and stripping moderators of their roles. Then, soon after, they would send out this announcement to the server.
At everyone, it's the time you've all been waiting for. Miitopia 2 is now open for testers and bug hunters. The download will be valid for 12 hours for all testers and bug reports should be reported through our ticket system. This will be buggy. It is just open for testing and playing around for now. We are limiting downloads to 100, exclusively for our Discord community. If the download is blocked, turn off antivirus through Chrome to let the game run properly. This is a false detection and will not be launched in the official release. Love you all. Less than 3.
Now, if it wasn't already extremely obvious, this was not, in fact, the demo for Miitopia 2, but rather it was a piece of software made to steal your Discord login token by scanning your local files and sending the token to the attacker. This allows them to log into your account without needing your password or two-factor authentication. To most people, it's obviously a scam since the server was not even affiliated with Nintendo, but younger users, anyone just not paying much attention, or people who simply didn't know much about Miitopia were still potentially at risk. After this, the hackers began to turn the server into a fake Etherscan support server. Etherscan is a legitimate blockchain explorer, so these users were impersonating them, presumably to do some sort of phishing scheme or something. There's not a lot of good documentation on the details of this part, but I would guess they were probably going to use the server to share links to a fake Etherscan website where they could funnel users in order to steal their credentials. The purpose of using the Miitopia server for this was probably just because it was a small server partnered with Discord, so it was an easy target and would help the scam look more legitimate. I know a lot of people were saying this was a cryptocurrency or even NFT scam, like a rug pull, I guess, but I couldn't find any evidence actually pointing towards that. I think people may have just been confused because they were impersonating a company that dealt with blockchain technology, but it's hard to say. Eventually, the server was recovered, although details as to how this was achieved are unclear. But all the channels that had been deleted could not be recovered, so there's 5 to 6 years of the server's history that was just lost. The server seems to be doing well now though, and was even recently renamed to Mii Central, reflecting its expansion to a more general Mii-related server rather than just Miitopia. This next situation is something that I have been asked to cover and has been mentioned to me probably more times than any other drama or event in the community. It involves some pretty gross content, so I was very hesitant to cover it, but I think this situation makes a good example that isn't actually as extreme as some of the other cases I've heard, so I've chosen to include it. Please take note of the content warnings on screen and the timestamp if you would like to skip this section. This story mainly takes place on the subreddit r/me, but would also spread to other subreddits this user was involved in, a user who I will just refer to as A. So, A joins this subreddit and begins creating posts. Many posts, like a lot, all talking about his love and attraction to me, Gunner. Some users found this annoying or even creepy, but the general consensus seemed to be that it was ultimately harmless. This went on until one day another user suddenly made a post. The link in this post was to A's Not Safe for Work Twitter account. An artist creating NSFW art isn't really a big deal, but the problem was that the vast majority of A's highly explicit illustrations directly and openly depicted underage characters as young as toddlers. The r/me community was unanimously outraged and disgusted by this discovery. A would create a post in response, but he entirely failed to address what people were actually upset at him for, and soon after, he would delete his Reddit account. A was also known for going out of his way to find and harass other artists who drew/liked me, Gunner. He replies to artists harassing them, and even traced a picture of someone's art in the background of his ass inflation porn, without their consent. Oh, yeah, that was my art, actually. The least I can say for this user is that I haven't seen them targeting any real minors, but I have heard of other cases in the community on occasion which are much darker. A has been shunned from the me community, but outside that, he hasn't really faced any repercussions for his actions. The sad reality is that there's not really much you can do about people like this. The best case scenario, they might get their accounts banned or leave the community, but they're still out there in the world. This is why it's important that we always stay vigilant for this type of person, or really any bad actor. While the me fandom is usually quite relaxed, in any internet community there will always be malicious individuals or people willing to exploit small, trusting communities, as these last two sections were meant to demonstrate. I chose these stories because they were the most well documented, but they are far from the only cases. My best piece of advice for situations like this is to keep your distance and don't interact with individuals like this directly. And of course, be extremely diligent when clicking any files or links, even if it's from someone you know and trust. That's just the tip of the internet safety iceberg, but I digress. That's not really what this video is about. But back on a more lighthearted subject, I wanted to talk about a few of the most recent topics in the me fandom, like the new promotional me's from the Tomodachi Life Living the Dream Nintendo Direct. Okay, you know where I'm going with this. Hugh Morris. This goofy fella has become a bit of a trend among mostly Western fans. There were a lot of characters made for this direct, even varying by region, and they each had their own little personalities shown in the gameplay footage. But something about this particular character caught a lot of people's attention. Attention which very much resembles that of other characters in fandom history, characters like Sans and the Onceler. Many people are quick to say he could become the newest Tumblr sexy man. Since this is such a recent trend, it's hard to say whether it's just a passing fad, or if Hugh Morris will gain a legacy of his own one day, alongside the greats like Sans, Bill Cipher, and the Onceler. Honestly, I'm leaning towards this being a fad, since he only appears in one trailer, so there's not much to keep the hype going, but I would love to be proven wrong. After reading responses from the survey, some things about the community become very clear. There seems to be a consensus that the me community's biggest strength is its creatively diverse and generally positive environment. This makes sense since it's very much a reflection of me characters themselves. They encourage creativity and appear in a wide range of games, so it's only natural this type of character would result in a diverse community. It's also just as fun and easy to enjoy me's casually as it is to get into them as a hardcore fan, so there's quite a wide range in this regard as well.
I have a friend who is very in-depth with the me community and likes to ramble to me about it. I myself consider to be far more casual though.
Many community members report the commonality and acceptance of traits such as neurodivergence or queerness as a major factor to their enjoyment of this community, and I think the fandom's generally accepting nature is partially to thank for this openness. While most survey participants didn't have any complaints about the community, there have been some mentions of gatekeeping, elitism, and general toxicity, and I can only hope this doesn't become a trend. I mean, the whole point of memes is that anyone can enjoy them. Everyone seems to unanimously hate discourse and arguing, and yet it seems to be a prominent issue in nearly every fandom. There's a lot more topics in the survey that I didn't have time to discuss in this video, so if you want to learn more, please check out the results linked below. If this video inspired you to get more involved in the fandom, but you don't know where to start, here's some pointers. Number 1. Creative projects. There's lots of creative things you can do with memes outside of just making them, so why not try something new? Draw a picture of your me or write a backstory for it. Get your me's 3D model and animate something with it. If you have access to the right hardware, you can even 3D print it. What about making your very own me plushie? I actually have a tutorial on this on my website. It's way easier than it looks. Number 2, make a website. Okay, this one might sound hard at first, but basic HTML and CSS are really simple. You don't need to be a tech nerd to do this, and it gives you full freedom to do anything you want. There's website hosts you can use that are completely free and user-friendly, and W3 Schools has a free interactive course for learning all the basics you need to start coding. You can make a blog about your Tomodachi life island, you could share your me QR codes, create character pages for your me, start making lists, documenting me history, or writing articles. Really, you can do anything. Just like with me characters, creativity is your only limit. Number 3, consume some cool fan content. Don't feel like making something? Well, there's plenty of content for you to consume. Try playing a fan game or check out some fan websites, look at other people's fan art, read some creepypastas or fan fiction or comics or visual novels or blogs. Whatever niche in the me community you prefer, there's probably some content for it. Number 4, draw me Gunner fan art for me, and I'll hang it on my wall or something. This video is by no means a full history of every aspect of the me community, but I hope this general overview helps to demonstrate the evolution of this fandom. I wish I could have included more, but there's a point when you're like 4 months into making a video with no end in sight, where you just have to reel it in a bit. So, in short, the fandom history goes something like this. When memes were first introduced on the Wii, fans enjoyed them for being a fun and novel gimmick. There was a sincere group of people who enjoyed memes, however the community revolved exclusively around the making and sharing of memes and was very casual. By the time the 2010s arrived, the novelty of memes had mostly worn off, but through things like Tomodachi Life, Miiverse, and Miitomo, they became icons of internet culture. While they were mostly known as joke characters, a very small number of fans began to appear. In 2021, the me fandom saw its first real spike in dedicated fans, and has been very steadily growing ever since. Whew, okay, that was a lot. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more me content, please check out my channel or my website in the description. I've been making stuff like this for over 2 years, so there's plenty of content you can catch up on. Ever since Living the Dream pre-orders began, I've been having to update my meme merchandise list a lot, a project I started on my site back in 2023 after making my videos about it. Oh, and speaking of meme merchandise, I've actually made some fan merch myself with my own artwork. So if you want some, I'll link that too. This is probably the best way you can directly support me, so it's greatly appreciated. Anyways, I can't wait to see what this new era will bring for my favorite characters, and I hope you'll come along and find out too.